Hi everyone, this is Lauren, your sewing buddy, and today I will be using this gorgeous red cotton to make a fit sample for a vest that I'm planning to have manufactured at some point. These patterns were drafted by Taryn at Taryn's Workshop, and I will drop a link to their Facebook page in the description. It's a really simple pattern, so let's get this cut out. As you can see, this was printed at home on standard printer paper and then pieced together with packing tape. So it's not the ideal situation, and of course, once it comes to actual sample making, I will be getting these printed out on large paper at some office store or other. But for now, this is what I have to work with. And I cut a notch there because there is a little horizontal dash on the pattern line, but it turns out that that's not, I think, meant to be a notch. Um, but we can see that later. So that's also why I left that little bit there that I could then cut out and make a notch for. This manufacturing these patterns, well, not the patterns, but the actual garments themselves, has been something I've had in mind for over a year now. I actually started looking for someone to draft the patterns almost exactly a year ago. And my friend put me in touch with Taryn, and Taryn has been amazing with revisions so far. So finally we're at the point where putting it together, I am confident in having another human try it on just to make sure that the sizing is correct. And I also have a logo for this. The line will be called Dallarayan, as you probably guessed from my email address, my Instagram, pretty much anywhere online you see Dallarayan, that's me. And my good friend at Tiki Head has made the logo for Dallarayan, and I will link them also in the description. the description. He does really great line art and caricatures and things, so definitely check him out. Also, he was one of my sewing buddies who I interviewed, so I'll link that video here if you'd like to check that out as well. And yeah, from there it's just getting all of these cut out. I'm starting with this as opposed to the skirt that I'm making because it's a much more simple pattern. It has, however, been sitting in my dining room for most of quarantine, which is why some of the pieces look a bit crumpled. But that is the way of things sometimes when that pandemic fatigue hits you. But that's why I'm so happy to have been working on this channel, because it gets me over that. I have to have something for you every Friday now. I definitely don't want to let any of you down. And speaking of crumpled, this one somehow got super squashed. But these things happen. And this is the back piece, so there's only seam allowance along one side, and this edge I'm cutting right now is cut along the fold. And I was originally inspired to actually market these pieces while I was working at that boutique, which shall not be named for the owner's anti-Semitic beliefs. But yeah, because we had a customer come in and told me that I should definitely market the skirt that I was wearing that I had made, and actually ordered one for herself, and that was an amazing feeling. So that's the skirt that I'll be making for next week's video, but for this week we are making this vest because, you know, it's fun to have a hooded vest that just is cool and simple and works with lots of things. So almost got this all cut out now, and then we'll finally get around to cutting the fabric. I would also like to drop a reminder in here that I do have a Ko-fi and a Patreon, so if you'd like to support me in actually getting these products manufactured, please, if you can, donate there. Otherwise, if you just want to keep watching, I am happy to have you. Uh, just please also like, subscribe, and comment so that YouTube knows that my videos are worth watching and worth showing to other people. Because the algorithms do sometimes bum you out. Anyway, there are all 3 pieces, and now we're ready to get the actual fabric cut. So I have no idea what I actually did while I was folding this to put it away. I know I did try to iron it before I folded it up. That was a process because there's a lot of this. Some of the creases, though, you can see are still there and unfortunately may remain for all of time. I don't know. But I did my best. So now it's just a matter of figuring out how to lay this out so I can actually get something cut. As you can see, I didn't do a lengthwise fold on this first. That's because there was just so much of it. So it's just a bit unwieldy. So what I'm going to do is lay it out as well as I can. Wrestle with it a bit. And then get a rough estimate for how long I need for each piece. So we're gonna do the center back, or I guess the back panels first. And again, give a little bit of extra room just in case, and do a snip and tear. Because that's always so satisfying. And the rest of that can get the heck out of my way. All the scraps from the pattern can get out of my way. And then I will wad these up a little bit better to toss them further away. Go. Okay. I will fold this lengthwise this time because this is a pattern piece meant to be cut on the fold. And I'm also aware that in higher fashion you would never cut on fold, so I may make that request for the final pattern, but for right now it's not super necessary. So steps I've taken thus far in getting the manufacturing done. I have had flats made. That was also by Tiki Head. I have a logo which will go into labels and hang tags and all of that. I have had the patterns drafted up. So for those who don't know, flats are essentially a 2-dimensional drawing of the garment. So if it was laid out perfectly flat on a surface, this is what it looks like. And then the pattern is what you see here, which is all of the pieces that go into it. She hasn't done pattern instructions. That may be something that I do on my own because I know how they go together. It's a matter of actually writing it out so that anyone can read it and say, oh, okay, piece A to piece B and so on. So it's a process. My next step after this is, once I have the finalized pattern, send that off to a manufacturer to have a sample made by, well, actually the next step after I have the pattern finalized is to write that up and do a tech pack. That is where you have the instructions, not just how it's assembled, but the specifications like half-inch seam, French seams, how you want those French seams done, how much of a hem it has, and a margin of error, which is if it's a couple of millimeters off, I'm not going to throw a tizzy fit. But, anything outside of that, we need to readjust your machinery, or maybe not even your machinery, but be more careful with the production. And all of this I've learned a lot from Foundations Revealed. I unfortunately had to stop my subscription with them for monetary reasons, but they are an amazing resource. This is not sponsored, it's not sponsored by anyone I've listed so far, but please, if you are at all interested in garment making, manufacturing, production, even if you just do it as a hobby, they are incredible, and it's a full community there to support you. And if you're not able to get involved with foundations revealed, I do recommend Kathy Hayes' videos. She is fully supportive of all of our creative endeavors. She's basically like your YouTube video creative therapist. Great for motivation, get it done, how to take on the world. She's an incredible person and I love her. But yeah, these are the resources that have really motivated me to get this done, get this moving. And it was supposed to be something that I had essentially done by this year. Like, I wanted to be already in production, but then COVID happened, and what can you do? But I am glad to finally be working on this again now. It's exciting, it's fun, it's keeping me busy, and when I finished that last project, I kind of stumbled about what I should be doing next, because I do have Regency stays that I've been working on hand sewing, and then there was this sitting in the corner, so I asked Jody, and they said, you know what, that's something towards your dream as opposed to just something toward a new garment, so you should really work on that. And yeah, they were right. So now we're cutting out that back panel after finally getting it pinned down. And again, those notches turned out to be utterly meaningless, but it's good practice to be in, just to make sure that we get those notches if they do exist to be used. And it's kind of amazing to me that I was able to get this done in 3 panels with the look that I wanted for it. The issue is it's just slightly too wide for me to be able to cut out the hood from that last bit of scrap. So that goes to the cabbage patch, and we cut a very small strip for the hood. And this one, the pattern maker Taryn is not, like, she doesn't do a lot of hoods for her pattern making, so she was really curious how this would turn out. From what I can see, it's good. Again, I'm still waiting to see these on a human, and those still have to be shipped out, so now that we're past Thanksgiving, that might take a bit, but I believe in our USPS, and I'm sure that they can get these where they need to be. And I am aware that I'm creating a lot of scrap with this project. Once again, any usably sized piece of scrap does not get wasted. It gets donated somewhere or used for another smaller project, but I don't, unless it's basically like this strip right here, I would just throw away because I'm not going to be able to use that for anything. But most of the other pieces I've cut off, I will save and use. I did wind up gifting about 7 kitchen-sized garbage bags of scrap to someone who's just getting into quilting. So I don't like throwing fabrics away. But anyway, now it's time to pin these pieces together to make sure they stay put while I sew this. Because my fabric doesn't have a front side, back side, I don't need to worry about which side I start with for the French seams. Of course, this will all be French seamed because even for manufactured, I don't believe in raw seam edges, and I don't like the look of serging. So now to get the sides pieced together, I did start with the notches matched, but that doesn't actually match up properly, it turns out. So I wound up scrapping that idea after trying a couple more times just to get them perfectly even. But that's where I learned that these are not in fact intended to be notches. These are just marks on the patterning. I did go back and double check to make sure that it was the same on the pattern pieces themselves, that they don't quite match up. And after pushing a pin through where the line is, it turns out that yes, they are about 1/4 of an inch apart. So, but it's a straight seam. There's no real fuss to it. Just need to match up the top and actually make it work from there. Because once I match up the top, the bottom matches pretty well. And that it's close enough that it may have been a piecing error on my part with the pattern or a cutting error, but it's very close to a perfect match. But then once I have these all pieced together, I can take them over, get everything French seamed, and I mean, at that point it's just hems and figuring out what to do for the armholes, and then it's done. Like, this is not a complicated thing to piece together. But there I am double checking because there was that little bit of offset at the bottom edge. But of course that's where you want any offset because it's easier to trim. So I just need to get the other side pinned on and we'll be good to go. So here we have the fully pieced together body of the vest. Nice French seams everywhere. And then the hood, which is still separate and also nicely French seamed. And now I just need to pin those together once again with wrong sides together so that we can do a French seam for the neckline and everything will be nice and tidy. And this is another seam that would have been very easy to get just slightly off with the patterning, but it turns out she did a really good job. As long as, once again, I ignore what I thought were notches, but I don't know if they're like distance markers around the pattern. I should ask her about that and see what she says. But I did make sure I had my center points lined up and then start at the end, work my way in, make sure there's no ease that needs to happen, and yeah, essentially just get it all matched up, pinned together. I did a little bit of fussing at the end there just because that was not pinned correctly, it turns out. But there we go. Time to head back to the sewing machine. And here we have the full vest put together, just needs hems now. And I'm going to start with the bottom edge. There you see the hood attachment. So for the bottom edge, I'm going to do, well, all the way around, I'm going to do a double roll hem. I'm not taking the time to do a line first and then fold it over because these are all straight edges, so it's very easy. Also, I'm taking the shortcuts to kind of replicate manufacturing. Because of course, if I were doing this for a commission or anything like that, I would hand stitch the hem down so that it was mostly invisible on the outside. But instead I'm going to do a machine top stitch. That way it's, you know, faster, because I don't want these to be $1,000 vests, because that's probably what I would have to pay if I wanted people to actually sit there and hand stitch all of these down. So instead we're doing it quick and dirty. Well, not dirty, but, you know, quick and easy. I'm not positive what the price point is for these yet. I still need to find a manufacturer with the newest shutdown, that might be difficult, but Taryn says she knows someone who basically has a full factory set up in her home, so that may be the way to go. I do like that so far I've been able to basically freelance everything from people who are more hobbyists than doing it for a living, because I like to support that, and you know, if it turns out one day I can actually give them full-time work doing these things that they enjoy, then I will be absolutely thrilled. I mean, that's basically the dream, right? And that's another step that I forgot, was fabric sourcing. that I still need to work on. I definitely want something a little bit heavier than what I'm working with right here, because this is basically just cotton, lightweight. It might be poly cotton, but I think it might be, but I haven't burn tested it, so I should do that. But I know if I want a heavier cotton, it's going to be a more expensive fabric, but also there are wholesale fabric prices, so that's just research that I need to do and make sure that I know what I'm planning to do. So once I've got that bottom hem all taken care of and stitched down, it's time to work on the side hem, which is the brilliance here is that it's all essentially one straight line all the way around. So it should be very, very easy to pin down and finish off without any worrying about ease or anything like that. And that's part of why I designed it this way. So once again, we're just doing the double rolled hem all the way around, starting at that bottom edge, so we've got the nice clean edge there, and just pinning as we go. And with that done and top stitch down, now it's time to look at the sleeve holes. I thought about just hemming these like the others, but the double roll hem around a sleeve or an armhole never quite comes out right, so I have made bias tape out of some of the scraps. And to see my no waste method for making bias tape, you can check out my Elven Vest bias tape to finale video. I'll link that here for you. And anyway, so with the bias tape, you want to make sure you're doing right sides together, because this is going to get turned to the inside. And I'm going to pin my way all the way around here. But then once that's done, I need to trim it and take it off of there so that, one, I can start with a nice clean circle without a huge amount of overlap where the ends come together. And also I need to know exactly how much bias tape I need for this, because that is information that needs to go to the pattern maker and into the tech pack. And also I'll have to decide if I want the manufacturer to make the bias tape, or if I want to make it myself and ship it to them, or if I want to find a prefabricated bias tape in the color that I need. These are all very important questions. So at the end, I've allowed about a 1/2 inch allowance, and then I'm going to fold the pieces one over the other and then reverse it, marking where the edge of each piece is, because that's going to be my seam line for this. So now getting those pins out so I can figure out the length that I need. And this is 18, almost 20, 9 3/4 maybe, measuring twice just to be sure, and then making a note of that so that I can get that to where it needs to go. And then it's just a matter of getting that sewn and doing the same for the other sleeve. So now I've got my nice clean circles with their nice clean seam lines. So once again, I'm going to go right sides together and get that pinned onto the armhole. I have several times done bias tape the wrong side out this way. Just doing a quick finger press here to make sure that seam stays open. Normally this is something that I discover before I actually sew, and it's just a matter of unpinning everything and then repinning it down. Just the big important thing here is to make sure that your seam lines lay flat open instead of being folded over, because folding them over does create a lot of unnecessary bulk, and especially around the armhole, that's no fun for the wearer. Here we have the bias tape connected on the outside, so now we need to turn it to the inside. So I'm going to start with the sleeve inside out well, the armhole inside out. And again, what we're going to do is match up the raw edges on the inside, so fold the armhole edge in and then the bias tape edge in, and then fold the bias tape over the armhole edge. And that should give us a nice even line with the outer edge. I want a little bit of overlap here because I am going to be stitching in the ditch to get this connected through. Again, rather than doing a hand sewn seam there, we're going to do it on machine so that it's quick and easy and cheap. And with all of that done, here's the finished vest. The dress form, of course, doesn't do it justice because the dress form is not shaped like a human. So that's why I have a fit model who will be trying it on. I've already verified measurements with her, so it should work out perfectly. And then that will let me know if I need the pattern maker to make any adjustments. Thank you for joining me, and check out the links in the description. I hope that you'll stick around, subscribe, and I will see you next week after we've both made more beautiful things.